Hi everyone! Today in this video I'm going to move this well-established rose in my garden. My good friend agreed to take this rose into her garden, and this video is going to be about all things we need to know how to successfully move the rose into a different location. Here I am standing in my freshly developed rose bed, future rose bed, which I'm trying to redesign here. And here we have this knockout rose. I partially trimmed it down already. The reason why I'm giving this rose away is because it's very difficult to train for me. It has very sturdy stems, which are hard to train, and also I don't like the blossom style of this knockout rose, so I'm parting away with this rose. Plus, there are two more roses growing here, young shrubs, well, they're climbers, generous gardener roses, and I want to spread them all nicely on this beautiful fence. And generous gardener has more obedient stems, so I would be able to trim generous gardener to go around on this fence. Now, the first question is, can the rose be moved? The first question we should begin with. Yes, the roses are tenacious things. They have good survival rate after moving them to a different location. There are some plants which cannot be moved. Some plants, for example, Baptisia, which has very long root. If you move it, especially when it's well established, Baptisia will die. What age is the best time to move your rose? Of course, when we are young, we get adjusted to new environment and new location much better than being in an old age. The same as a rose. This rose is probably 4 years old, so this rose is not an old rose. I would say rose is old when it's over 7-8 years old. So this rose shouldn't have any difficulties getting adjusted to new location. I want you to keep in mind, when you have a very old rose in your garden, more than 7-8 years old, and you want to move that rose for whatever reason, keep in mind that all the roses have hard time adjusting to new environment, and it can take them a long time to come back to their, former glory. So it can take them probably 3, sometimes 2 years to get adjusted. And if you want to do that, if you have to move the rose, I would advise you to, instead of moving the old rose, try to take a cutting from the rose and propagate it, or go ahead and buy the young bush of the same variety. This way, in several years, you will have the same rose, the same strength of a rose. In several years, that young bush will develop and mature into almost the same bush as your old one. So what is the best time to move a rose? The best time would be springtime, because rose is in dormancy, and when it just comes out of the dormancy in early spring, it starts to increase its metabolism, and when metabolism is still very low, that's the best time to move the rose to avoid the transplant shock. This is ideal situation to move rose in spring. Look at me now. Right now is the beginning of October, and I need to move this rose, and it's okay to move an established rose in October, as long as you give this rose plenty of time to get adjusted and to develop somewhat established root system before going into the very cold weather of winter. So the best time to move the rose would be in spring. The second best time to move the rose would be in fall. Now, you can move the rose in summer, which will be somewhat problematic for a rose, and you cannot, absolutely not, move the rose when the ground is frozen in the middle of the winter. It will be totally impossible to dig up the root system of the rose. Now, if you want to move your rose during the blooming time, there are situations when we have to do it, or we just have to lose the rose, so why not to try? Keep in mind two things when you're doing that. That rose would be, first thing, rose would be quite unhappy with you for doing it. And second thing, you have to really take care of the rose just after planting. you have to be really on top of watering, really babying rose back to its fresh new leaves starts to emerge. What happens to the rose when you take the root ball of the rose and replant it in a new location? You have to keep in mind that majority of the root system is left behind, and rose doesn't have the capabilities to absorb water. So let's say you watered the rose very deeply and you left it like that for 3 days. Rose, for the first day, rose drank that water, which was fine, but then second day, water moved down and rose doesn't have the root system to reach that water. They say that you should water rose deeply and not frequently. Not in case when you just move the rose to a new location. You have to do it every day for the first several weeks to make sure that rose develops secondary root system and is able to take water into its system. Now, a lot of people ask, do we have to trim our rose when we move it to a new location? And the answer is definitely yes. And we do more when we have a bigger, green mass on the top of the rose. And this rose is a climber. It had a lot of green shoots all over the place. It was kind of overpowering this place. I didn't like it either. So I took majority of it down. Please keep in mind that the root ball, the size of the root ball, has to coincide with the size of the top mass of the rose, because keep in mind that that root ball has to support all this lush greenery. And if you would force the root ball to support the whole mass of the rose might just fail to grow, because it's not going to be, the roots would not be able to fulfill the task of supporting of so many green leaves on top. Plus the perspiration through the leaves would be huge, and the roots wouldn't be able to take all that water fast enough to lose it through so many leaves. That's why before moving the rose, we trim it. And I did majority of it already. By the way, this is another stem from my generous gardener roses. There are 2 of them. And this one, believe it or not, I trimmed it because I didn't see that that's generous gardener rose. I thought this is a Nock Out rose. Oh well, what can you do? I trimmed such a good, healthy shoot out. It's okay. Once this rose is done, I will put these shoots along this fence and it will look really good next year. Now, how I trim my rose? I basically cut out. I follow the same rules as in trimming a rose for spring. So I cut it out all disease stems, all spindly growth, and I shortened the stems. Now look at this problematic situation here. Here we have borers. And I'm going to cut it out and I'm going to show you what's going on in that stem. And that's not good. I have to dig that guy out of here. Let me show you. Just look at this. You see, I cut this stem earlier and you see this hole here? That's a stem borer, went in. And I bet you when I go down the stem, I'm going to catch that bug right there. So this is what I'm going to do. Let me see if I can see it on the video. My husband is not here to film me, so hopefully you would be able to see it. You see, it went in. Let me see, let me cut it here. Oh, yep, he's not here yet. You see, there's no hole here. Let me see. No hole here yet. So he didn't go far. He didn't go far at all. He didn't have time, because I just trimmed it recently, so he's just here somewhere. Oh boy, he's really close up. I wanted to show you this nasty thing, how he grows inside. Not here yet, he just started his funny business. All right, here we go. Look at this. Look at this. This is a borer. Oh, he escaped. Gosh, he made his house and he escaped for whatever reason. Okay, I'm going to throw it. Nevertheless, I'm going to throw it into the garbage. But this is how this stem borer will go inside the open wound of the rose and will start digging through. And you will see that the cane of the rose starts to give in, starts to kind of die back and you wouldn't know what happened. But this is it. When you see the hole like this on top of the stem, know that trouble is coming. That stem might be dying off. So I'm throwing that stem away, that damage away, because I don't want any borers on this rose. I don't want to give the diseased rose to my friend. The way to combat this situation would be, for me, let me move it down for you to see where this is. Yeah. The way to combat this situation would be for me, and I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to this fresh wound you see here, to put a little Elmer's glue right here. So all the nasty things are not going to go through glue into the fresh tissue of the rose. And that is not going to damage the rose, wouldn't give any damage to the rose whatsoever. That's a way to approach it right now, because those borers are around and they are going to attack this rose again, this fresh wound. The old wound, I'm not sure if you see it. Okay, let's move down. You see this old wound? It's already done. The borers won't go in. But the fresh ones, they attack. Okay, so that was a little diversion about the pests of our roses. The next topic we're going to talk about would be about the weather. What is the ideal weather to move our rose? The ideal weather would be a beautiful rain the day before and cloudy conditions. Right now I struck gold because we had a huge rain the day before and we have cloudy conditions today. And why do we need rain to feed our rose the day before? Well, when rose goes into a replant shock, the roots of the rose have to be hydrated well enough to kind of carry on that drought condition of moving the rose to a different location. And it generally helps a rose a lot if roots are well hydrated. So right now conditions are perfect. There's no sun and there was enough rain to feed the rose with beautiful deep soaking water. What you can do, of course, if you don't have rain, you water your rose deeply and you try to shade your rose. When you move rose to a new location, make sure for several days rose has some shade. Make sure that rose is not baking under that shade. I sometimes use a chair if I have to. Just put a chair against the rose and give your bush a little bit of a shade and break from sun. What tools do we need for this job? Of course, we need our rose gloves, good quality gloves made out of lambskin to protect our hands and our elbows not to get any scratches. Second thing, we would need good pair of secateurs to take our the green stems down, and we need a good spade. I would advise you to make sure that your spade is sharp, because we need to cut through the roots of the rose with quick, sharp cuts of the spade. Some people say that they use forks. I wouldn't use forks. I think forks are good for when you want to get the bare roots of the rose. Sometimes there are situations like that. But in my case, I want to save as much soil near the root ball of the rose as possible. So we are talking about digging maybe 1 foot away from the trunk to another foot away from the trunk. I'll try to do that. I'm not sure how much of the root ball I would be able to save. I almost finished cutting this rose. I'm going to finish it more. So I'm going to put these gloves on. There are some, you see this long shoot? It's not really this rose shoot, not a knockout rose, but another rose. So I probably will move it here. And you see this big stem? I already took it out. Be gentle when you move branches away, because you don't want to damage another rose here. And that big stem, I will take care of it later. So, this is a different stem. We will take care of it later. This is also my good rose stem. And I think this skeleton is the rose which will be going away. It has plenty of leaves to sustain itself, but not too much to be stressed out that the root system cannot support it. All right, I'm going to dig the root ball of this baby. So approximately 1 foot away from the stem, you're making a sharp cut. And go around. This way, with a sharp cut, you will cut the stems here, whichever they are, if they are there. Oh yeah, there was something. Now, the problem with me is there is a beautiful boxwood growing right here, and I cut through some stems, I can feel it. Now, I have to go deeper and work myself out there. Oh gosh, this is not going to be easy. This rose is deeply established. Right. All right. The root ball is listening. You see how the earth is moving? No, this side doesn't want to listen. All right, I got some big stem here. Oh gosh, this is heavy. You see what I do? This way I can go deeper. Again. Okay, I went deep. Sorry, Rose. All right, it's working. We have to get this root system out. You see how I'm trying to push my spade under, kind of to level those out. Okay, good. Now I will go on another side. And we'll get this rose out. All right, should be almost out. There was a, okay. All right. What I'm going to do, let me get the gloves. I'm going to get this rose kind of bend this way. Oh, gosh, I want to disconnect this rose from another rose. Okay. All right. All right, done. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put this rose to this big bucket. Okay, my rose is in the bucket. I'm going to water it. I made sure that all the root system is covered with dirt, with soil. I'm going to put more here because I don't want this rose to have exposed roots. Very dangerous for any plant you're moving. When you expose the roots, roots can dry out within 5 minutes. And basically dry roots are dead roots. So I want you to know that. I want you to remember that. Gosh, this is heavy. This rose is happy to move into a new location. The problem is I still worry that the top is a little bit too much for the root system to support. So I'm going to take it down just a little bit. Now this is a new rose, okay. All the spindly stuff, which is not really needed, like double shoots, I will take down. All right. I will cut more. Okay, this thing is... You know what? I will take this one too. Alright, so that's probably it. This rose will be ready to go into its new location. Alright, this one too. This is some sort of spindly stuff. And this too. What is this here? Okay. Alright. This dead stuff here. Alright, so that's it. Rose is done. It's ready to go. I'm going to put it into the car and bring it to its new location, to my friend's garden. I would advise her to plant this rose as soon as possible and let this rose get used to its new home. Thank you for watching this video. Please do subscribe if you like what I'm creating for you, and ask me questions under the video. This way, whatever I forgot to mention, whichever problem I forgot to address in this video, I can do it in the future videos. Happy gardening, and I will see you next time.